Alright, so I haven't started editing yesterday's vlog yet, and here's why. So, I left Sarge's at 9:45 and got home at 10, and I needed to be up at 3 to get to work by 5. So home at 10, I had to get showered and changed, and I had to get yesterday's vlog from my SD card onto Final Cut Pro and then onto my hard drive and then erase from my SD card. That took me to almost 11 o'clock. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 hours sleep. And then I'm going to be at work until 1. So I kind of need to get some sleep, so I haven't edited yet. But today is going to be a special day because instead of getting home at 1, freaking out that I haven't done anything, and then getting something that's not quite quality out, I'm going to spend the next couple of hours going through a little special something for this weekend. I'm going to be doing my HvZ tips, tricks, and loadouts. That's a full comprehensive guide of everything that's going to happen and everything that I'm doing to prep for this coming Sunday, which is when HvZ is on. So I'll see you guys after 1 o'clock.
So let's get started, guys. Let's get on to this tips and tricks while I go out and run around Wollongong, because that's an excellent way to show you guys how to survive on Sunday if you're heading up that way, or how to survive any HvZ event that you end up going to.
That appears the mark of a human being or a demon. God save us, the devils.
The first thing I should note before starting this list is that these are all my personal opinions, my own tips that I use, the little strategies I use for my own playing style. Obviously, if you're a heavy or a sock ninja or someone that's starting out as a zombie, these tips aren't going to be for you, but they work for me and my playing style. So obviously the first thing that you kind of have to make sure that you get on top of is running. Running really helps. Like, you don't need a super labor intensive fitness regime, but just something that stops your body from going into shock when you try and run away from some zombies. It helps. And also, if you're a zombie, not going into shock after trying to chase after one human. So yeah, that's tip number 1, is cardio. Tip number 2 has to do with corners and tight spaces, especially like this one here. As far as pretty much every single first-person shooter game, TV show, movie about the military, or anything to do with, you know, fighting something in the streets, is they always tell you to stick to the wall, take corners nice and tightly, stay out of sight. Not effective in HvZ. That was actually the first time that I ever got caught, was because I stuck too close to a wall when exiting a parking lot. So the way that you take corners in HvZ is as wide as possible. Like, if you can go stand out in the middle of the road to take a corner, as long as there's no traffic, do it. Because the zombies in the game are not ranged opponents, unless like a special zombie is, but usually they're not. So you have the advantage with the distance, so try not to encounter one, you know, right around a corner. Make sure you have tons of field of view. Go around corners as wide as possible. Tip 2, wide corners. Tip number 3 is what to wear. A lot of people will dress up like in full army attire, or the furries like to dress up as furries. As far as my playing style goes, I would suggest don't dress like this guy, because you will get targeted, because zombies think it's much cooler to tag a guy in full operator gear as opposed to someone wearing regular clothes. So as far as sprinting, making sure that you can get ahead of the opponent and not get dragged down, regular attire is always the way to go. But one note on the attire is that I'm dressed, I will be dressing for success, but the blasters that I'm taking aren't the most effective, aren't like scientifically proven as to be the most effective. You'll see what I mean in a sec. But I feel like if you have tons of firepower, you can afford to dress in a fursuit because you have the firepower to back it up. So that's just a side note on the entire thing. My guns are kind of stupid, but it's okay. It's alright. I think they're great. So, tip number 5. I kind of wish I was up at the lighthouse when saying this, because that's where my main point lies, is learn where to bunker down. You will need to take rest through the day. You can't just keep running and running and running, and sometimes safe zones aren't an option, so you need to know where you're going to lay low for a while. Early in the game, it's a really good idea to find some place that is fairly out of the way, because there's a lot more humans than there are zombies, so you're less likely to encounter a zombie while you are relaxing in your little hideout. In saying that, last HvZ that I played, I ended up bunking out in a little alleyway right at the end, and luckily didn't come across any zombies, because if they had, you'll find that at the end of the game they travel in hordes. They kind of just all gang together and just float around in masses of 300 or 400, and you don't want them coming across you in a corridor, because you're not going to get out of there alive. I was lucky, but I've learned, because I was afraid the entire time I was in there. And also in saying that, I've seen people being taken down in fields before, but the best place to bunker down later in the game is somewhere nice and open, preferably higher ground, somewhere with only escape routes, where there are no dead ends anywhere. So as long as you run, you're gonna get out, because you don't want to have to think about where you're running when you got like people running after you screaming and trying to, you know, touch you. So yeah, that's my little tip on where to bunker down early in the game and where to bunker down later in the game. So tip number 5 is a tip that I am explicitly not following this game, because it's up in Olympic Park, which is a little bit too far out of the way for me to make day trips up to scout around. But if it's in your local area, know your local area. When it was at UOW, I floated around, I found how to get from A to B as quick as possible. So yeah, if it's in your local area, scout it out. If it's not, don't make a big deal about it, like I am not. There are going to be people there that do know what they're talking about, and you can always make teams. Tip number 6, know your blasters. Once again, like I said, this is tailored to my playstyle. I know people that rocked up on the day, didn't know what Nerf was, grabbed a Nerf gun and won. But it's always a good idea to just know your blaster. So there's just that taken out of the way. There's not something you have to think about then, because the less you have to think about, the more effective you can play. It's like you wouldn't go playing soccer with a ball that's like half the size of the regular soccer ball, because you're not used to that. It's just, yeah, do what you know. Step number 7, and this is a fairly universal step. Everyone needs this step, because it's water. Hydrate. Make sure you get some water in your system. Make sure you're hydrating very, very well the day before and the day of. I say the day before because if you hydrate, it gives you nice clear skin, which is always nice going in. You don't have to worry about those, having dry skin. Also, if you hydrate the day before, you're just giving yourself that much more hydration for when you end up being there on the day and need to hydrate on the day. It's just, it makes sense. Just, yeah, hydrate. And now that we're walking through the nice trees and the rain drops are pouring on my head, it's a good point to bring up tip number 8, which is check the weather. I have, for all of you Sydney goers on Sunday, it will be a high of 26 and overcast, but with low chance of rain, which is handy. But bring wet weather gear anyway, just in case, because you don't want to be running around getting soaking wet, even if it is nice and warm. Yeah, always dress for the weather and check the weather. Make sure you know the weather. I made the mistake early through today of checking the weather in Wollongong, and it said it was going to reach 22 degrees and be absolutely pouring rain. But sadly it's just overcast with very low chance. Tip number 9 is probably the dodgiest of all my tips and hints and strategies, because I don't know if it's frowned upon or not. I can't imagine it would be, because A, you're helping the cleanup crew, and B, it's just very advantageous to do so. But collect the ammo that you come across. If you have no ammo, you're really screwed in this game. And no matter how much ammo you bring, you'll always use some. So why not collect what others don't, what others leave behind if you come across them, and end up better than when you started. It makes sense to me. Tip number 10 comes back to what I was saying at the start of today. Well, not start today, the start of this tips and strategies video, which is know your class, know your strengths, know what you can and cannot do. There's no point going there if you're a really, really good cricketer, really good bowler, and not taking any socks. Because socks in HvZ are just as effective as Nerf blasters. You can throw them at the zombies. So if you're a really good bowler, you can bowl on point. Probably going to be more accurate than most of the blasters out there. So there's no point not utilizing your skills. Same goes for if you are a furry. I know I keep coming back to this, but this was actually like a legit experience that I had with some guy at UOW during the HvZ. Yeah. He struggled. But if you're a furry and you're going to spend thousands of dollars on a big fursuit, it might be worthwhile spending that money also on the most OP blasters you can get your hands on, because you're going to need that firepower, boy. You ain't going nowhere fast. And then the third and fourth classes, I guess, you've got your regular, which is just me, who just kind of likes Nerf blasters, and I'm just going to pick something that I enjoy using and can use effectively without impeding my speed. I know I'm not super fast, but like I'm fast enough. I was one of the last survivors last time and I got the kill to the base, so I can't be that bad. But there are always rumors of a man that runs around with a single shot blaster. One round without having to reload, spend ages on reloading. He runs around in those shoes with the toes in them, and that's all he has. He has maybe some skins on, and as soon as he sees a Z, he just runs off in the other direction. They're usually incredibly fit sprinters and distance runners, and they can just go and go and go, and they use that to their advantage. And the final tip, just before I start heading up the hill and the wind gets too bad, I'm just gonna hide behind this thing so you guys can actually hear me, is the most obvious, even more obvious than bring water, which is have fun, guys. There's no point going there. I've seen way too many people just absolutely spaz out. I really wish I had footage of some of these guys. They're usually the ones in the army costumes, and they just go absolutely mental when they get tagged. They just can't take a hint. When you say calm down and they say I'm gonna smash your head in with the butt of my rifle, and I'm like, dude, it's a Nerf gun. Calm your horses. I've run into way too many of those guys. If we can reduce the amount of douchebags playing HvZ, that would be great. But for now, I'm just gonna preach it. Just have fun, guys. Enjoy it while it lasts. These times don't come around real often. If you do become a Z, take it in its stride. I honestly think that being a Z is much more relaxing and almost more fun. I guess it's fun in different ways than being a human. Being a human is very stressful, but you do get to hold your blaster. Whereas if you're a Z, your close quarters combat is the only type of combat you're going to be facing that you can kind of win.
Okay guys, so this here is my loadout for this weekend. It's Dan's super ridiculous, not very smart loadout that should be tons of fun to play with. So to start off with is my primary. I'll move these guys out of the way. Whew. The modulus. I picked the modulus because I wanted a strife and I can't find strifes anywhere, so a modulus will have to do. It's a bit bigger than a strife. Internals are exactly the same. So yeah, it's basically a strife that's a little bit a nicer shell as well. I prefer the slightly larger shell. It is nice. I'm running it with an 18 round clip, and I will be carrying a 12 round clip with me because why not? All about that ammo. Like I said, this is for my specific play style. Both of these will be full to start off with, but if I find any, then this here will pretty much be my drop pouch for ammunition that I find. And then once this runs out, I'll switch them over. And then this will be my drop pouch. And then yeah, they'll just keep switching. And hopefully that'll last me. Like I'll be carrying a whole heap of ammunition with me as well, but these two are going to be the most easy access places where I can get ammo.
Cool, so yeah, that's my primary. Now this is where it starts getting interesting. This here is my ideal primary. It is the Retaliator XD. I don't know why I have the banana clip on there, but for now I do. Just ignore it. Imagine I'm using the other mags on here. I would like to use this. Hopefully I get a chance to use this, but it does have 2 springs in it. And Zedtown said no modding. They said that they said it's like a liability thing. So if you do bring a modded gun, bring a backup gun. So this here is, technically speaking, I'm going to try and make this my primary. That would be ideal. I would like that. I like spring over the flywheel because I'm able to cock this back, have it primed, ready to go instantly. It's ready to go. And I'm trained enough in it that I know what I'm doing. Okay, and then as far as secondaries go, this here is probably the secondary I'm going to use because it makes the most sense. But how cool does this thing look? It is the Cyclone Shock, so I would like to use this. I'm probably going to pop out before I go to the event and just grab handfuls and handfuls of mega ammunition, because this thing here handles like a dream. This is probably my favorite right now, but the issue is it only holds like 6 darts at a time, as opposed to 18 darts. And yeah, there's not too much to say about the hammer shot. Like, you can use it one-handed. Probably if I do end up, like, depending on which one of these I use, regardless, I will have, like, I find that if you have a flywheel, that makes the secondaries, if they're spring loaded, much more important, because you can have them primed and ready for the first shot, and then this is like a, you know, if you need heavy fire, because it takes a little bit while for this to warm up, as you would imagine with a flywheel. So yeah, that's my loadout. Obviously I have other stuff like food and water and a bag and wet weather gear, but this is kind of what we're focusing on. This is the nerf side of things. Nerf for nothing. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you all tomorrow.